You and I both know how quickly panic spreads in Cowboys country. One bad stretch, a couple of turnovers, and the hot takes start stacking up like a losing streak. That's why I want to start here, not to scare you, but to put the fear in realistic terms before we get emotional. Historically, the Cowboys have only fallen into an X0 to 2 hole a handful of times across their long history. It's not common, and that rarity matters because it shapes how fans and analysts react. Think about it this way. When a franchise with Dallas's expectations stumbles out of the gate, the reaction is louder simply because those expectations are so high. But rarity also buys you something: perspective. Yes, starting 0-2 has often correlated with a tough season. And sure, the final records after those starts have generally been disappointing. Still, the Cowboys franchise has been through these dark spots before and survived. There's that famous outlier season, the team that started 0-2 and still rode all the way to a Super Bowl. A reminder that outliers exist and that the narrative doesn't end after week 2. That said, the reality is simple. An 0-2 start compresses margin for error, makes every divisional game feel like a season determiner, and turns what should be a measured coaching and front office response into a weeks-long drama. So what does this mean for you right now? It means breathe, but pay attention. This isn't about shrugging off losses. It's about watching what the coaching staff, the players, and the front office do next. If answers and adjustments show up on game day, scheming to hide weaknesses, better ball security, cleaner third down play, then the historical stigma fades, and the team gets a real chance to reset. If the same mistakes repeat, the numbers that haunt 0-2 teams will start to speak more loudly. Quick interaction here. Comment with a simple yes or no. Do you think the Cowboys will avoid an 0-2 start this season? Put your vote in the comments. And add one quick reason why. And if you're new here, or you want us to keep building this community, hit subscribe. We're pushing to 16,000 subscribers, and every new member helps us keep these breakdowns coming. In the next segment, I'll unpack the numbers and the historical final records so you can see exactly what those past 0-2 seasons looked like, and why context matters when we talk about a team like Dallas. Let's dig into the numbers, because history has a way of telling the story before the hot takes do. Across their long history, the Dallas Cowboys have started a season 0-2 only 8 times. That's it, 8. When you consider how many seasons this franchise has played since 1960, that's a relatively rare scenario. But here's the part that stings. In 6 of those 8 instances, the Cowboys went on to finish the year with a losing record. That trend tells us that, more often than not, an 0-2 start really does foreshadow trouble. In Big D, it's not just bad luck. It's a reflection of deeper issues that weren't solved early enough. Now, let's talk about the one glaring exception, because this is the part that diehard fans hold on to. In 1993, the Cowboys, yes, Jimmy Johnson's Cowboys, with Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, and Michael Irvin, stumbled out of the gate, 0-2. They had just come off a Super Bowl win, but contract drama with Emmitt Smith left them without their star for the first 2 weeks. Once Emmitt returned, the team flipped the switch, tore through the rest of the schedule, and not only made the playoffs, but went on to win the Super Bowl. That 1993 season is proof that an 0-2 start doesn't automatically kill your championship hopes. But let's be honest, that was a special roster, a Hall of Fame coach, and a unique situation. Hoping for that same lightning to strike again is wishful thinking, unless the current roster shows it has that same level of resilience and talent. The broader NFL data backs this up. Historically, only about 11% of teams that start 0-2 end up making the playoffs. In today's 17-game era, the math is slightly better than in the old 16-game schedule, but not by much. Dropping those first 2 games essentially means you've got to play near .600 football the rest of the way just to claw into the postseason. That's why analysts and fans panic. Not because 0-2 is impossible to overcome, but because the margin for error becomes razor thin. Here's the nuance. Not all 0-2 starts are created equal. Were the losses against playoff caliber opponents? Were they one-score games? Or were they Was the team relatively healthy? Or were they missing key stars? That's the context that matters in 2025. And that's exactly what we'll evaluate when we preview this week's matchup in Chapter 3. Before we shift gears, I want to hear from you. Which historical Cowboys season do you remember most vividly after a bad start? Was it the ugly collapse years or the 1993 miracle turnaround? Drop your answer in the comments, and let me know if these stats surprised you. All right, now let's bring it into the present. Because history is one thing, but what really matters is the game right in front of us. The Cowboys are staring at what feels like an early season crossroads. This week's matchup isn't just another date on the calendar. It's the kind of game that can swing momentum, confidence, and the entire season narrative. On paper, the odds makers still see Dallas as a favorite, which tells you two things. One, despite the drama of Week 1, the talent on this roster is undeniable. And two, the market believes this team is better than what they showed. That's important, because sometimes the national conversation gets loud, but Vegas numbers can be a quieter, more honest reflection of expectations. Still, being the favorite doesn't guarantee anything. You have to go out, execute, and prove that Week 1 was an aberration, not the start of a pattern. Let's talk matchups. The offensive line is the first and biggest key. Protecting Dak Prescott and giving the run game some life is non-negotiable. Last week showed what happens when protection breaks down, drives stall, turnovers creep in, and rhythm disappears. If the O-line handles its business this week, everything else opens up. On the flip side, if protection struggles again, that's when frustration grows and fans start to question coaching adjustments. The defensive side is equally crucial. We've got a young quarterback on the other sideline, a rookie who's still figuring out NFL speed that should play directly into the Cowboys' hands. Micah Parsons and this pass rush need to make him uncomfortable, force mistakes, and keep him off balance. If Dallas allows a rookie QB to look poised and confident, the headlines on Monday will be brutal. But if they bring pressure and force turnovers, suddenly this team looks like the contender fans expected. And here's the emotional layer. This is the get-right game. Every season has at least one. If the Cowboys respond, tighten up the details, and grab a win, they reset the entire narrative before it spirals. If they don't, then the noise grows louder. The questions about coaching and leadership intensify. And the stat that only 11% of 0-2 teams make the playoffs will be repeated everywhere you look. This isn't just about X's and O's, it's about showing resilience. Can this team bounce back after a gut punch? Can they play with urgency without panicking? Those answers will tell us more about 2025 than any stat sheet from the past. Now, I want you involved here. If the Cowboys win this week, do you see them as legit contenders again? Drop a yes or no in the comments. And here's a fun one. Give me your score prediction. I'll be shouting out some of the best and boldest predictions in our next video. Now that we've tackled the history and the upcoming matchup, let's zoom out and talk about the bigger picture. Because being a Cowboys fan is never just about the scoreboard. It's also about the drama, the roster moves, and the constant swirl of speculation around this team. One of the loudest storylines in recent weeks has been the fallout around Micah Parsons. Anytime a star player even brushes the rumor mill, the fan base lights up. And while the Parsons trade chatter doesn't feel imminent, the fact that it exists at all says something about the way this front office operates, aggressively weighing value, cap space, and long-term flexibility. The counterbalance, of course, was the acquisition of Kenny Clark. That move felt like a clear statement. Dallas isn't punting on 2025. They're trying to plug gaps, stabilize the trenches, and keep this defense in the conversation as one of the league's best. Here's why that matters for the 0-2 discussion. If things were to go south early, fans would be quick to blame Jerry Jones and the front office. But the reality is, this roster still has the firepower to compete. Parsons is a generational pass rusher. CeeDee Lamb is one of the league's elite receivers. Dak Prescott, for all the noise, is more than capable of leading a contender when the pieces around him function. The trades and signings are signals that this organization knows the window is still open, but it won't stay open forever. The real question is execution. Can Mike McCarthy get this group aligned and disciplined? Can Dan Quinn continue dialing up a defense that takes over games? Can the offense cut down on mistakes and actually finish drives? That's what fans should be watching closely over the next month. If the answers are yes, then the drama will fade into the background. If not, the front office moves will look like band-aids on deeper wounds. I'll close with this. Being a Cowboys fan means living in the middle of the storm. The expectations, the history, the criticism, and the hope. But it also means you never go through it alone. This community we're building here is proof of that. So I want your take. How would you rate the front office's recent moves? Smart, meh, or disaster? Drop your one-word verdict in the comments and tell me why in one sentence. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. We're on the push to 16,000 subscribers, and your support makes all the difference. Stick around, because we've got more breakdowns, updates, and Cowboys talk coming all season long.